Welcome everybody to another episode of the FarmCast. We are live on location today at our test farm in Severance doing some tillage training. I'm Troy Randall with our Precision Ag team, joined with Casey Andrews, also with our Precision Ag team. So glad to have you back again, Casey.
No, it's a recurring theme, it seems like, being out here.
Yep, glad to have you. So today, like I said, we're out here doing some tillage training right now. So we're at our test farm. We planted and harvested fallow throughout the year. So can you kind of tell us what we're doing out here today, Casey?
Yeah, so basically what we're utilizing today for is kind of going over some technology in our tillage equipment. So a bunch of different things that we can showcase, whether it's technology like TruSet on our combo ripper we have out here today, ATTA. We're showcasing that too. That way our salesmen feel comfortable with it. So a lot of different things are going on today.
Yep. So this basic tillage, but it's a good way to get guys in the cab and get them used to things and kind of show off the latest and greatest. That way they can get out there and show it to our customers as well. So
yep, absolutely. So, we just want them comfortable with the technology. That way when they go out and have those conversations, they can speak about it and see the value of it.
So what we're using today is a 2730 ripper, and then it's a 7-shank machine pulled by a 9R tractor. So, and the big thing we're showing today here is TruSet. So kind of what TruSet allows us to do is pretty much fully automate all the set points of that machine. So no longer are we having to manually adjust things like our depth, our gang angle, our basket pressure, things like that. It allows us to pretty much fully control that from the cab through the TruSet controller. So it takes a lot of that manual adjustment. And actually I was doing some reading on the way here, but it saves up to, some guys even think it saves up to half an hour when it comes to setting that machine when they get out in the field.
Yeah, and the nice part that comes along with that too is obviously our fields are not completely uniform either. So if we come across a sandy spot that we may not want to bury the residue as much, make all sorts of different adjustments based on soil type, we can do that with all from the display. It's all hands-on. You can make those adjustments as just on the go, basically.
Yep. And as the tractor goes behind us here, you can see it going. It's just a tad bit wet out here, but it's luckily dry enough where we can.
Yeah, we can still
we can get it done. So we're getting a little bit on the tires, but yeah, we're purveying for today. So back to TruSet. The one thing I kind of had in mind when I was thinking about this, what a lot of customers probably do, they probably, they kind of set it and forget it. They get it set for a field, and they probably do that field, the next field. They might make some few tweaks here and there, but I guess in your experience, they usually ever adjust it that much based off ground conditions. They might always kind of lean more on just leave it for now and adjust it when it gets to the point where it needs adjusted.
It seems like once you get kind of dialed in for that particular field, they leave it for the rest of it. Yep. But I think there's a lot of missed opportunities. I mean, we've seen a lot of wind erosion in our neck of the woods lately. Some of the nasty storms that have come throughout the winter and early spring. Maybe we don't want to bury that residue as much on those lighter texture soils. Maybe they don't have as much residue, that type of stuff. But there's also a lot of flexibility there if you're trying to incorporate manure, bury this residue like we see out here. It's all hands-on and you can make those adjustments.
Yeah, and just like our yield, our fields definitely aren't just one solid, the same throughout the entire field, are they? So that's where it gives us some flexibility. We can adjust things quickly on the fly, like you said. So we can almost make a prescription, which we'll talk about here in a second too, but we can pretty much easily make those adjustments based off varying field conditions a lot quicker than we could in the past, or be more apt to making those changes too. So
yeah, I think that prescription tillage is still pretty new out there. Not many guys actually executing that, but I think there's a lot of value to that. I mean, a lot of that variability in the fields, what if we tailor that into it where it's automatically doing it? The customer doesn't have to worry about making those adjustments on his own. It's just taken care of just as he's going. Maybe he doesn't have the most skilled operator in that machine. He can send that prescription over. That way that person doesn't have to even worry about making those changes. So
so I have one good success story on that too. Is actually from a couple of years ago, and we sold, I think it was a 2660 VT that came to TruSet, and the customer we sold it to, he was pretty apt. He's pretty technology driven, so that's the one thing we had to help him get going was the prescription side. And the nice thing, we do all that through Op Center, through the Tillage prescription generator too. But he was pretty excited to utilize that, and we got it set up, and we kind of had to work through some. He figured out the hard way. He couldn't run it to 2630. He had to be a Gen 4 newer. So so we got over that hurdle. So we got him upgraded there, and he's actually, and they're in real sandy soil, so he really liked to take advantage of that, and he made some prescriptions where he pretty much was barely scratching the surface up on the top, so he really left a lot of that residue on top, and the bottom ground where it was heavier, higher yielding corn, he was able to incorporate that residue better going through the field. And the nice thing, like you said, it's pretty much hands off. Even you could almost make it the most pretty much advanced or simple prescription, like we were even talking for this field. We don't have a lot of variability here, but we could even just make, if you just want to make it simple, you could even set up the prescription, just make it flat rate for everything, so that way when it gets in the field, that operator loads it up, you already have everything set already. So even though you might not be variable rating all those changes throughout the field, you can at least get it set up beforehand. And like that's the same thing I even kind of do for some of my guys when it comes to planning too. Like you might not have a prescription, but it's nice just to have that in there, that peace of mind. It's like, hey, this is the rate I want to use. This is the depth adjustments, the pressures I want to use for the tillage. It's just loaded up there, ready to go. So you
talked about like a lot of the different things that we can adjust. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more on all those different features?
So depending on the tool type we have, we can adjust, like this is a ripper machine here, so we can adjust our ripper depth, we can adjust our gang angle on certain machines, we can adjust our basket pressure. So that's the main majority of them. Pretty much TruSet is almost in base with a lot of our machines now. There are some different aspects of it too, but there's select and premium now. So premium gets us pretty much all those adjustments on those machines that we can adjust it. But the cool thing is we have on this machine, and something just came out here recently, is called TruSet Active. So the cool thing about Active is it pretty much uses an ultrasonic sensor, pretty much the exact same sensor we have on our sprayers for BoomTrac, so it looks very similar. It's the exact same sensor almost, but what that's actually doing is, instead of how our select machines work, they use a potentiometer, and it's kind of calibrated just based off the depth or the position of those certain things. And fortunate thing about that, it doesn't really adjust for changing ground conditions. Or the TruSet Active, like on this machine for our depth of our rippers, it's going to actually measure the distance from the frame to the ground, and it can actually kind of adjust for variables. So if you get in spots where it's wet, the tires start to sink down, it can adjust for that. And if it gets harder again, if the tool raises up, it can lower those rippers down to actually make sure we're shooting for 10 inches out here, if I'm correct. So it makes sure it's maintaining that 10 inches of depth throughout the entire field, not just static based off the frame. So that's one nice thing about it.
Yeah, it just adds more precision to that tillage pass, in my opinion.
So precision tillage for sure. So
and like one other variable is, like, we noticed out here today, like we have some mud caking up on those tires. It'll account for some of that stuff too. That way we get right to that 10 inches.
So it's a good thing. So we had like a good quarter-inch of mud on the tire on both sides, and that adds up to half an inch right there on the tire. So if we didn't have select, we're going to be sacrificing. We're going to be a little bit shallower than we're actually aiming for too. So that kind of highlights the key features of the Active right there too. The nice thing is that, like I said, the TruSet Active comes on all our base select machines. So that's one nice thing. We pretty much get the new fancy TruSet Active on the base machines, and then we can add all the other adjustments on the premium machine too. So Case, we talked about just real briefly there, but another nice feature we have with TruSet is presets. So we have up to 4 different presets we can choose, and you kind of even talked about them real briefly too. But I guess in a typical scenario, when would guys use those, or how might those be utilized in a typical tillage operation?
In my opinion, I think where those presets really come in nicely is, like we talked about, those varying soil conditions. So we can get fine-tuned for if it's a sandy soil, maybe our more heavy soils, just all sorts of different variations we have across our fields. We can have those presets defined. That way we hit that button on what that preset is, and if it worked well on like those particular fields, we can just utilize that for the rest of that field. So just once you get it fine-tuned, you can always go back to it and just flip back and forth depending on what your field conditions are.
You can still manually adjust it, but what I've kind of seen, or kind of what we've seen, you can almost have presets for, like a corn or a fallow one, or maybe like corn, soybeans, whatever you're doing, or you can even have kind of a light and heavy, or a light, medium, and heavy, and just 4 different presets you can kind of fit to your heart's desire of what you're doing. So just kind of gives you more flexibility. And of course, as soon as you hit that button, it changes all those settings you can adjust in TruSet. So like your angles, your depths, your pressures, all that is going to change to that preset. You can change it back, you can modify them, things like that. Just so it gives you a real quick button to change for real quick changing conditions out in the field. So
do we want to also circle back to ATTA?
Yep. So that's
highlighting that out here today. So I think it's just a good opportunity to get more exposure to that, get more of these salesmen comfortable with that whole setup process, what it takes in the display to properly set it up. We've done RDA with some of these guys to make sure like we get fine-tuned the way we need to, because every implement's different, every tractor's a little bit different. We have different headlands that we have to turn around in. like a lot of those different adjustments that we can make.
Sometimes we can go outside the boundary, sometimes we can't. So.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So I think it was good for them to walk through all those different processes and feel comfortable with that. That way, if a customer has some interest, they're at least dangerous on what they need to walk them through, or get us involved when we need to fine tune it that much more.
Yeah, and ATT has been an awesome tool, and we've been trying to promote it more and more throughout the years, and I think we're finally starting to get quite a bit of traction with it too, but not just in tillage and anything we do, planting, anything tractor-wise as of right now. And of course we have it for combines. We actually, that's kind of not to get lost back on harvest talk, but we had quite a few guys run it in harvest this year on combines, and they really liked it too, especially if it was running one machine. We had a bunch of guys that loved it, so very nice.
I mean, it just showcases a lot of the technology that they may already be using on, if it's machine sync, if it's passive implement guidance, all those type of things. Like, it's just one other tool that they already have in their toolbox that they can be hopefully making their operation a little bit more efficient.
And it was kind of start to add some of these things together. We have TruSet, which is kind of automating tillage tool back there. We have things like ATTA, turn automation. You can almost start to see this as kind of the building blocks of autonomy, like we've been talking about here the past couple of years. So pretty much all this comes full circle when we talk about autonomy, because pretty much all these technologies are built into autonomy to, hopefully one day, or here pretty soon, actually control that machine autonomously out in the field, in a tillage field, just like we have right here. So
and I think getting them exposure to stuff like that, when that switch gets flipped for full autonomy, then they're way more comfortable with it, and can truly trust what the technology can do.
Yeah, they're already used to TruSet, ATTA, Op Center, Work Planner, things like that.
Yep, absolutely.
So kind of going back to, we talked about prescriptions real quick, but the way we actually get those prescriptions to the machine is, of course, we can build them in Op Center beforehand, so that's a plug for Op Center right there. We use the prescription generator, the Tellus prescription generator within Op Center. The nice thing from that, we can pretty much build a tillage prescription just like we can in any other prescriptions. We can use like a yield map, we can use a previous map, we can use elevation, we can even just use soil, just kind of real basic soil zones out here too. And then we use Work Planner, and that's how we pretty much get it from the Op Center to the machine. And the nice thing about Work Planner too is it allows us to, like we've said many times, but Work Planner is a very nice tool to make sure to help us get everything set up beforehand. So of course we can select the machine, the implement, the guidance lines, the boundary, everything we're going to be doing in that field. We can set up a Work Planner, send it to the machine, boom, it pops up, it's ready to go. Operator just has to import it, or even just drive in that boundary, and then it preloads all that information ready to go for them. So like you alluded to just a second ago, almost allows us to kind of maybe put a less skilled operator in there and then have the confidence that they are, performing that task, at the highest possible precision they can, and make sure everything is done to how it needs to be done for that field. So,
and I think it's all in the spirit of productivity too. They're not sitting there at the edge of the field trying to figure out what guidance line, maybe make a new guidance line, all that type of stuff. Like, they go ahead and accept that work plan, and they're ready to rock and roll and get over some acres.
Yeah, that's been a very, very nice feature about it. It pretty much takes the guesswork out of the hands of the operator, if that's what you need, and makes things much easier when you get out in the fields.
Yep, absolutely.
There's a nice shot of the tractor going behind us right there. So thanks again, Casey, for joining us for another episode of the FarmCast live on location out here at the Severance Farm. If you're interested in anything we have precision ag technology related or even equipment related, make sure to come to our High Plains Expo, February 26th and 27th in Greeley, Colorado. So get pre-registered for that. You can get signed up for that now. Thanks, Casey, for joining us today and talking about precision tillage and all its benefits. But until then, I'm Troy Randall with the FarmCast, and I'll see you in the next one.